You wake before you fully understand that waking has become a different thing. The air around you is warm near the floor and cold above the blanket, and the whole Longhouse seems suspended between night and morning, between smoke and breath, between the end of one life and the beginning of another. Somewhere close by, an ember shifts with a soft red sigh. Somewhere farther off, wood settles in the rafters. You lie still for a moment, beneath the thick rough wool, and try to remember what part of your body belongs to you, because all of it aches in unfamiliar ways. Your head is heavy from feast drink and late hours and too many voices. Your shoulders know the hardness of straw beneath a mattress that is less a mattress than an agreement with the earth. Your mouth tastes faintly of honey, salt, and the remains of yesterday. Beside you, your new spouse is sleeping on their side, turned slightly toward the dying fire, hair loose and tangled, one hand still curled into the blanket, as if even in sleep they are holding fast to something. That sight still does not feel real. Last night there were hands, vows, benches crowded with kin, cups lifted, a room too loud to think in, and then the blur of being led away through smoke and laughter into the curtained dimness where the two of you were expected to cross from promise into fact. It happened, of course it happened, and yet this morning feels more startling than the night. The night was a storm of ritual. The morning is quiet enough to hear the truth arrive. The truth is that the house is awake around you. You hear it all at once when you stop listening only to yourself. A pot set gently on a hook, a child being hushed, a cough from the far sleeping alcove, the delicate impatient stamp of an animal somewhere beyond the door. A woman crosses the packed earth floor with the easy certainty of someone who has been up for hours already. Another pair of feet follows, slower, heavier. No one speaks loudly, but the silence is not privacy. It is attention being polite. The hearth smell is half ash, half old wool, and there is that thinner, sharper scent too, morning air slipping through the seams in the wall. You realize with slow embarrassment that every person in this longhouse knows exactly where you are, and exactly why you are still behind the curtain. Your spouse stirs then, eyes opening only a little at first, before awareness settles into them. For one small suspended moment, the two of you look at each other without words. Two people who are no longer strangers, and not yet familiar. Two people standing on a bridge they crossed in darkness, and now have to study in daylight. There is no grand tenderness in the look. There is something better for. Now there is shared confusion. There is a quiet question. Did you sleep at all? Are we meant to rise now? Did everyone hear everything? Their mouth moves as if they might smile, then think better of it. Then finally, allow the faintest version anyway. You answer with a breath that almost becomes a laugh. It is not much, it is enough. If this old smoky house feels gentle enough to stay in, stay with me a little longer. Let the fire breathe low, let the benches creak, let morning come slowly. You push yourself upright. The blanket falls away from your shoulder, and the chill finds you at once. Someone has folded your outer clothes and set them at the foot of the bedding with more care than you expected from a household currently pretending not to study the newlyweds. One boot is beside the clothes, the other is not before you can search for it. The curtain lifts a finger's width, and a young cousin slides it inside without entering. Her face hidden except for one bright eye and a grin she is trying and failing to suppress. Then she vanishes. Your spouse closes their eyes for one long resigned blink. You feel a pulse of absurd gratitude toward the missing boot, because it gives you something ordinary to think about. Leather, laces, the stiffness of yesterday's mud. Better that than the larger fact standing over you like a tall person in a small room. When you dress, it is awkward in the way all early intimacies are awkward. You both turn slightly away while pretending not to turn away. A shoulder brushes a sleeve. Your knuckles touch once while reaching toward the same fold of cloth. Neither of you apologizes. Outside the curtain, the house continues its patient movement. Someone is stirring porridge. Someone else is splitting something that sounds too solid to be bread. A low muttering begins near the hearth, then stops. You tie your belt more slowly than necessary and try to draw one calm breath. The breath helps, so does the fact that your spouse, now fastening their own cloak, looks no more certain than you do. The curtain parts fully. Morning does not rush in, it waits, and the household waits with it. No one calls out, no one points. The Longhouse is too practiced for that. Instead, the whole room makes a kind of quiet space for you, without ever naming it. The benches near the hearth have already filled in their usual order. Elders closest to warmth. Children, where they can be reached and corrected. Working hands near tools, bowls and doorways. There is a place for you, and a place for your spouse. And the fact that those places exist at all feels more significant than any cheer could have been. You cross the floor with the uncomfortable sense of walking into a tale already underway. Smoke drifts upward in pale ribbons. Light leaks in thinly through roof slats and around the door. Everyone looks busy enough to deny they are looking. Everyone looks just long enough to prove they are. A broad-shouldered woman, whom you now know is one of the household's central sons, sets down a clay bowl before you. The porridge is thick and steaming, oat and barley, and a little too hot to eat. Quickly. And cheese, Lily. She gives you a nod so small it could mean welcome, judgment, or simple acknowledgement that you have not fallen over yet. In this house, those things may not be so different. Your spouse sits beside you and reaches for a spoon with the grave concentration of someone approaching a legal proceeding. You copy them. Across the fire, an old man with a beard like river moss lifts his brows once. Beside him, a girl with braided hair whispers into her sleeve and nearly chokes on the effort not to laugh. The morning seems held together by these tiny motions, half concealed, all meaningful. This is the part. No feast song lingers on. The wedding itself is the loud visible thing. The cups and vows and bright pieces that can be retold later with gestures. But marriage, in this world, begins in the quieter acts after the doors close. It begins when two families begin measuring whether the union can hold. It begins when the household asks whether a new pair of hands can fit the rhythm already beating here. Love, if it comes, is welcome. Affection, if it grows, may become precious. But those are not the first questions asked of you this morning. The first questions are simpler and heavier. Will you stay? Will you work? Will you keep the peace? Will you become a dependable thread in the cloth rather than a snagging knot? Perhaps that sounds cold from where you are lying now in the dark listening, but inside the Longhouse it does not feel cold so much as old. Old as the hearthstones, old as the stubborn weather outside. A marriage is not only a joining of two people, but a balancing of food stores, sleeping space, loyalty, inheritance, and the thousand small arrangements that keep winter from winning. Land matters, kin matters, reputation matters. A household is not a private nest sealed off from the world. It is a breathing structure of obligation and memory. If one beam shifts, everyone hears the creak. Someone refills your water before you ask. Someone else pushes the coarse bread nearer. Hospitality and assessment move side by side here, like two oxen pulling the same load. You are expected to eat, because refusing would insult the house. You are expected to eat properly, because how you hold your spoon now says something about the home you came from, the discipline you were taught, the steadiness you may or may not bring. You are not merely a guest, you are an arrival with consequences. Your spouse glances down into their bowl, as if porridge might contain useful prophecy. Without looking at you, they nudge the bread closer with one finger. It is such a small gesture that no one else would call it tenderness. Here, this morning, it feels enormous. A woman near the far bench begins speaking softly to a child about sheep rot, and that ordinary rhythm gives you room to let your own thoughts settle. You understand then that the Longhouse is not waiting for a grand pronouncement. It is waiting for consistency, for small proof, for the uneventful survival of 1 hour, then the next. There is comfort in that, even if it comes wrapped in embarrassment. No one needs you to become legendary before noon. They need you to keep hold of the spoon. Answer when spoken to, and not behave as if marriage has lifted you above the work of being human. Your spouse takes a breath and leans the slightest bit toward you. If you keep your face that serious, they murmur, so low it is almost hidden in the fire crackle, they'll think you regret everything. You nearly inhale hot porridge. The sound you make is half cough, half startled laugh, and several heads turn. Your spouse lowers their eyes to their bowl, in perfect innocence. The old man across from you makes a noise in his throat that may be disapproval, or may be the beginning of amusement. You answer under your breath, if I smile too much, they'll think I'm mad. Better mad than dull. Your spouse replies. There it is again, that tiny narrow bridge between the two of you, built not of confidence, but of mutual uncertainty. You step onto it anyway. Outside, the day is brightening. Inside, the house seems to decide that you may continue. You do continue, though not for long in peace. The room changes before you can finish half the bowl. It is not dramatic at first, merely a thinning of side talk, a settling, the kind of hush that moves through a room before weather arrives. One woman stands, then another. A younger man who had been feeding scraps to the dog abruptly remembers his own hands and folds them in his lap. Your spouse stills beside you so completely that even their breathing seems to hesitate. You turn your head and find, coming from the shadowed side of the hearth, the household matriarch carrying a folded piece of linen with both hands. No one needs to explain what it is. The cloth explains itself. It is one thing to know in the abstract that a marriage here belongs partly to the community. It is another thing entirely to watch that truth arrive in the shape of fabric. The matriarch does not flourish it. She is too practical for ceremony without purpose. She holds it the way one holds anything that may alter the temperature of a room. Near the fire, the linen catches the morning light and gives nothing away at first except wrinkles and the memory of being slept on. Every eye in the Longhouse becomes careful, not openly fixed, careful, the kind of attention people use when they wish to see everything while pretending to see almost nothing. You feel heat rise under your skin so quickly it is almost clarifying. Beside you, your spouse clears their throat once and then does not attempt it again. The matriarch unfolds the cloth further. There are no grand words, because grand words would make the moment harder to survive. Inheritance, legitimacy, reputation, the sealed fact of a union, all of that rests here without being named aloud. You understand with painful vividness that a household like this does not trust mystery where proof can be invited closer to the fire. The wedding night may have taken place behind a curtain, but mourning belongs to witnesses, implications and signs read in silence. The cloth is held up. An older aunt leans not quite forward, The old man near the hearth squints, whether from age or interest, impossible to tell. The younger cousins suddenly become very devoted to not dropping crumbs, which means they are listening with their entire bodies. You wish for a blizzard, you wish for smoke thick enough to swallow linen, bench and you with it. Instead, there is only the fire, the cloth, the longhouse, and the peculiar human ability to breathe through embarrassment, because breathing is easier than vanishing. In another age, another house, perhaps this might have been different. Customs are never identical across every shore and valley. Some households cling harder to old tests, some soften them, some replace public proof with private assumption. Yet this one believes in signs held plainly, not because its people lack imagination, but because they know how fragile agreements can become when heirs, property, and memory are involved. A marriage is not only a warmth between two bodies. It may become a line of descent. It may shift who lives where, who inherits what, who owes whom, who may later claim that something was never fully done. So the cloth rises before the day can move on, and the people who built this house let the cloth speak where human promise might later blur. The matriarch studies it for what feels like the length of a season. Then she gives the smallest sound, a low breath through the nose. Not approval exactly, not triumph, but decision. She folds the linen once, then again. The longhouse exhales all at once, without admitting it has exhaled. The old man reaches for his spoon again. The child on the far bench finally lets herself swallow the laugh she had been holding, in terror of the wrong moment. A door in the atmosphere opens. Nothing has changed, and everything has changed. Your spouse lowers their head into one hand and mutters, "If I live to be old, they will still remember this morning." "Then we should grow old somewhere very far away," you whisper back. That finally does it. Their mouth turns toward a real smile, brief and unwilling and impossible not to answer. It passes quickly, but it leaves behind a surprising thing. Not ease, not yet. Rather the first sense that the two of you may survive humiliation better together than separately. The linen disappears into the matriarch's keeping. People return to their bowls, though with the faintly brighter faces of those who have come through uncertainty into narrative. Soon this morning will become a story, retold by the same fire in softer tones and with sharper memory than either of you would choose. That is the way of houses like this. They store not only grain and tools but moments, and once stored, a moment can be taken down and handled for years. You think the room might finally move on. It does move on, only not in the direction you hoped. The cloth was proof of one kind, now the house is ready for proof of another. Material, counted, locked, enduring. The marriage has been read in linen. Next it will be read in goods. You are guided not out of the house, but into another pocket of it. A side space separated by hanging cloth, stacked chests, and the sort of privacy that exists only because everyone agrees to call it privacy. Lamps burn low there, flatter and steadier than the hearth fire, throwing light across wood grain, metal catches, folded fabric, and a table already arranged for counting. It feels less like entering a family room than entering the place where a family's memory keeps its ledgers. Nothing is written on parchment in front of you, yet the whole table has the air of an account about to be recited. The first things laid out are ordinary enough to seem almost tender. A carved box, a length of woven cloth, a clasp meant for fastening wool at the shoulder, a bundle of rope, a key, small and dark, with a ring worn smooth by other hands. Then the recitation begins, and ordinary things become significant simply by being named in order before witnesses. One goat pledged, one measure of grain promised after harvest, one chest, 2 winter blankets, a cooking pot with its lid. Yes, the lid counts. No, it will continue to count, no matter what anyone says. A set of brooches, not grand but sound, a strip of good leather, a knife, salt, dried fish. The list is practical enough to be almost soothing until you understand that every item is a statement about what this union cost, what it brings, and what may later be argued over if affection runs thin or fate takes a bad turn. An aunt with fingers stained by years of dye and smoke taps each object lightly as if waking it into relevance. A grey-haired man standing near the wall adds small corrections in a voice so dry it seems preserved for winter. Your spouse listens more sharply than you expected, not because they are greedy, but because all of this concerns the shape of the life now being built around both of you. Marriage here is a bond of bodies and a braid of obligations. If the braid frays later, people will return to mornings like this one and remember exactly what was promised. In that sense, the count is not unromantic. It is merely honest about the world you live in. Love without bread. Blankets, tools, and rights. To use them remains a beautiful thought and a dangerous winter plan. At first, your mind clings to details simply because clinging feels easier than floating. You notice a dent near the lip of the cooking pot. You notice the way the clasp catches light. You notice that one of the folded blankets smells faintly of cedar. Then, the longer rhythm of the count begins to work on you. Repetition settles the room, item after item, value after value, promise after promise. The tone is sober, but not joyless. These things are not being displayed to shame you. They are being anchored in memory. Everyone here knows life changes fast. Storms come, children are born. A fight, kin, people leave, fires fail. If the household is to trust this marriage, the marriage must first become legible. There is a moment of disagreement over whether a narrow iron cauldron hook should be counted with the cooking tools or separately. The debate is astonishingly calm and astonishingly sincere. An older woman insists that a hook is a hook and should not pretend to be part of anything else. A cousin argues that without the pot there is no point in the hook, and therefore it belongs to the larger set. Another relative says the real question is whether the hook came from your side or theirs. You stand in the middle of this and feel something inside you begin to loosen, because absurdity has a mercy of its own. If people are willing to argue this carefully about a hook, perhaps they truly do mean for the marriage to endure long enough for the distinction to matter. Your spouse leans close enough that only you hear them. If they ask your view on the hook, choose quickly. Households have divided over less. You almost smile. Should I say the hook belongs to the future and let the gods decide? No, they whisper. Then they'd ask which god. By the time the hook finds its category, the side room feels smaller and calmer. The count reaches its close. A key is set down, then picked up again and placed into your spouse's hand with a gravity that needs no ornament. It is not the key to everything. No one in a crowded house owns everything, but it is enough of a symbol to send a fine ripple through the gathered witnesses. Responsibility rests more heavily than metal should. Your spouse closes their fingers around it, and when they do, you feel the oddest flicker of pride, even though the key is not yours. Perhaps that is part of the new arrangement too, another person's burden beginning to matter to you, because their days will now shape yours. The side room empties slowly. A lamp is pinched darker. The clasp, the cloth, the pot, the rope, all are carried away into use or storage. The marriage has been examined in linen and measured in goods. You step back toward the hearth with a head full of objects and values, and the dawning knowledge that in this house even a chest has a memory longer than some people's tempers. There is comfort in returning toward the fire. There is also the uneasy certainty that the fire has not finished with you yet. And of course it has not. A Longhouse can forgive a great many things faster than it forgives bad manners at a meal. You have been weighed in symbols and items. Now you will be weighed in appetite, composure, and the angle at which you hold a spoon under watchful eyes. When you return to the hearth benches, the bowls have been refreshed, and the room has shifted from morning hush into its next shape. Conversation light enough to seem casual, structured enough to be dangerous. The in-laws are gathered now in a ring of ordinary motion that leaves very little genuinely ordinary inside it. An uncle with eyebrows like storm grass is tearing bread with immense dignity. A grandmother sits wrapped in wool and age, seeing more than she seems to see. The household's sternest aunt has taken a place almost directly across from you, which feels intentional enough to count as strategy. Your spouse sits near your shoulder. You are grateful for that, though you do not say it. The food changes from porridge to fish, stew so salty it tastes as if the sea itself has been persuaded to become breakfast. You accept the bowl with what you hope is the expression of a person raised well, and not one on the edge of visible panic. The aunt across from you watches as you take the first spoonful. In any other place, such a look would be rude. Here it is a question, asked silently. Can you accept the house as it is? Can you swallow what is given? Can you do so without making yourself the center of the meal? The stew is not bad. It is simply powerful. You swallow. You nod. The aunt does not smile, but she reaches for her own bowl after that, which might be the closest thing to praise she offers before winter. Questions begin slowly, tucked inside gestures. Do you wake early where you come from? Can you mend leather? Have you ever kept bees? Who taught you to carve? Is it true your mother's side always salted lamb before the first frost? You answer one by one, careful not to sound too proud, careful not to diminish yourself into uselessness. In this kind of house, false modesty is almost as suspicious as boasting. Someone asks whether you can sing, another asks if you know the names of local winds. A third asks whether your people travel in deep winter or wait for ice to settle first. It is less like a conversation than a pattern being woven around you, each thread testing whether the cloth will hold if pulled. Children are the least discreet. One boy asks whether you snore. His sister asks whether married people become old faster. An older cousin wants to know if your village really raises geese, mean enough to guard grain stores. The grandmother turns her face toward your voice and says, very softly, a house learns a person faster at table than at prayer. No one answers her because no one needs to. The benchwood presses up through your bones. The fire dries the side of your face nearest the hearth. Across all of this, your spouse keeps performing small rescues so slight that anyone watching would miss them. They shift the shared salt closer when your hand looks about to search for it. They answer one question before it fully lands on you. They nudge your foot once under the bench when you reach too soon toward the honey dish. The lesson arrives through that nudge more clearly than any lecture. Timing is another household language. Then the old man at the center of the elder bench clears his throat and asks, with no warning and no context, what kind of story does your home tell in winter? The room quiets in a different way then. Not alarmed, expectant. This is no longer about stew or table skill. It is about whether you can place yourself inside the house's imagination. You think of where you came from, of smoke on snow, of long evenings and work that never quite finished, of your mother's hands sorting grain by feel, of the way stories in winter were never only entertainment, but warmth arranged into language. You answer slowly. You say that your home in winter tells stories of keeping the roof above grief, of sharing the better blanket without speaking of it, of fox tracks by the woodpile, of people who become dear not through great speeches but through surviving dark months with steadiness. When you finish, there is no applause, there is something better. The old man gives one small nod as if confirming a measurement only he can see. Your spouse turns their face slightly toward their bowl to hide a smile. "That was almost beautiful," they murmur, "only almost." We must leave them wanting one skill undiscovered. You have to look down after that, or you will laugh at the table in full view of everyone. The room resumes its motion. A child drops a spoon. A dog noses under a bench in search of a crumb. The grandmother begins telling someone how poor weather can be smelled in wet wool 3 days before it arrives. The pressure drains by degrees, not all at once, just enough. You understand then that a household like this does not make room for you through one grand act of welcome. It allows you in through repeated small survivals. You have eaten, you have answered. You have not insulted the stew, the elder, the aunt, the bread, or the timing of the honey. The standard is low and enormous at the same time. When the meal finally thins, your spouse's mother catches your sleeve and says, not unkindly, "A house has a rhythm. Learn it before you try to improve it." Then she lets go and moves away before you can decide whether you have been warned, advised, or welcome. Perhaps all three. The door opens for someone carrying in more wood, and a vein of cold air cuts through smoke and salt and heat. For the first time since waking, you feel the shape of the world outside the Longhouse again. The urge to step into it comes over you with almost physical force. Your spouse seems to feel the same thing. They set down their spoon, exhale once, and say under their breath, "If we stay another moment, I may accidentally agree to herd geese for the rest of my life." That is enough. You rise together with permission, no one bothers to name, and make your way toward the door, carrying with you the taste of salt, the warmth of the hearth, and the fragile beginning of shared escape. Outside, the air touches you like cold water laid gently over hot skin. You stop just beyond the threshold and breathe as if you have been underwater all morning. The yard is brighter than expected, the snow at its edges greyed with use, the packed earth damp where boots have worn a path between Longhouse, shed, and pen. Smoke lifts from the roof in slow strands and drifts sideways before thinning into the day. Pat. Somewhere nearby, a horse stamps once. Beyond the fence line, the world continues with astonishing indifference. Another roof, another dog, another curl of smoke rising into the same pale sky. It is a relief to discover that not every moment of your marriage is being watched, even if enough of them are. Your spouse comes to stand beside you, arms folded against the chill. For a little while, neither of you speaks. The silence is not awkward now, only tired, a useful silence, the sort that lets breathing return to its own shape. You look at the hard winter grass showing through patches of trampled snow. They look at the woodpile as if counting pieces is easier than counting emotions. At last they say, "Well, well," you answer, "that could have gone worse." You turn toward them, "Worse than the whole house reading our morning in lin and fish stew." They consider it with unreasonable seriousness. Much worse, a cousin could have started singing. The laugh comes before you mean to let it. It escapes low and startled and real. Your spouse hears it and answers with one of their own, shorter at first, then fuller, until the both of you are standing in the cold yard, trying not to laugh too much and failing in that modest task. Nothing particularly funny has happened, except survival itself. Yet survival can be very funny when enough eyes have been on you. The sound of shared laughter changes the air between you. It does not turn it into romance, it turns it into possibility. The strange thing is how quickly the world softens after that. Not the weather, not the house, certainly not the goats beyond the fence. But the space between your thoughts. Until this point, every part of the day has asked you to understand what marriage means to the household, to the kin group, to the future, to property, to memory. Out here in the thin winter light, marriage narrows for a moment into something much smaller and more manageable. Two people standing side by side after an exhausting morning, relieved that the other one is still here and still capable of humour. If joy in old houses often arrives quietly, perhaps it begins exactly like this, with laughter, not because life is easy, but because it clearly is not. Your spouse bends to pick up a twig from the ground and snaps it in half. I think my aunt approved of you, did she? She gave you the good bowl, not the cracked one. You absorb that with proper solemnity. Then I shall treasure the honour. Do not get ambitious, they say. The cracked bowl is hereditary. The yard opens into other smells as you stand there longer. Wet wood, damp straw, old smoke caught in wool, the faint animal warmth that seems to live permanently in the walls of a place like this. A child races across the far side of the yard with a stick and no visible purpose except speed. Somewhere beyond the shed, a hen complains to the gods. The day is no less real than it was by the hearth. But here, reality feels spaced farther apart. You can think in it. You can notice the slope of the roof, the frost melted from the door handle, the way your spouse's hair has slipped loose at one temple. They notice you noticing and raise a brow as if to ask whether something is wrong. You shake your head. Nothing is wrong. That in itself is new enough to hold carefully. There is an old idea, one you have heard in different forms from different fires, that laughter early in a marriage is a kind of luck. Not because it predicts easy years. Easy years are not the sort of thing sensible people promise. Rather because laughter means neither person has frozen entirely under the weight of expectation. It means there is still enough room inside duty for a little air to move. Looking at your spouse in the pale yard light, you think perhaps that is blessing enough for one morning. They tuck their hands into their sleeves and glance back toward the Longhouse door. We should go in before they send someone to fetch us. Would they? Oh yes, and if my younger cousins come, they will act as though escorting us is an enormous honour. You do not yet want to go back inside. The thought surprises you with its force. Not because the house is hostile, because the house is powerful, and this small slice of sky and cold feels briefly your own. Your spouse seems to understand. They do not move at once. Instead, they take one more long breath and say, when we go back in, we begin learning where everything belongs. Everything. They glance sidelong at you. Objects, buckets, tools, people, rules. No one says out loud whose bench creaks, which child bites, where not to stand if you do not want a sack of grain dropped into your arms. The usual married pleasures, the laugh that answers them is softer, a warmed ember rather than a spark, the kind that can survive being carried inside. At last the two of you turn back toward the doorway together. The light behind you stays clear and cold. The warmth ahead smells of smoke and many lives sharing one roof. You step toward it, knowing that the next part of marriage will be less public than the morning's tests and somehow more intimate for that very reason. A bed can be shared in a single night. A house takes longer, a rhythm longer still. The sleeping space that is now yours together is not really a room, and not entirely not a room. It is a curtained corner shaped out of necessity, timber, and the household's collective agreement that a strip of hanging wool may count as privacy when everyone needs it to. The bedding lies on a low raised platform, stuffed with straw and covered in layered furs whose histories are older than your marriage and probably better known. At the foot stands the chest that will take in the first small map of your shared life. Around it, the walls bear marks left by previous seasons. A peg worn smooth from cloaks, a beam scratched by belt buckles, a dark place near the floor where boots are always set to dry. You enter with your spouse and the strange reverence of people approaching something more intimate than last night. Last night belonged partly to ritual, to expectation, to the force of being led there. This moment belongs to arrangement. Your bundle has already been brought in. So has theirs, the few things that matter enough to travel with a person from one household to another are suddenly spread before you in the ordinary lamplight, and they look both humble and more revealing than skin. A comb, a knife, folded linen, a coin pouch, a strip of braid, a mended shirt, a little packet of herbs tied with thread, a wooden spoon worn to the shape of someone else's hand. Your spouse kneels by the chest and begins sorting their things with an ease that suggests they do not feel ease any more than you do, but understand that beginning is often easier than speaking about beginning. You kneel across from them. The space is narrow enough that your knees nearly touch. Neither of you mentions it. You place your comb near the back of the chest. They set their clasp beside a folded tunic. Your coin pouch goes left. Their leather wrap goes right. Then comes the first small negotiation of married life. Who gets which side, which fold, which corner where a favourite thing can be reached in darkness without waking the whole bed. It is almost funny how serious it feels, yet these tiny placements will shape tomorrow morning and the morning after that. Intimacy is not only heat under blankets, it is also the knowledge of where another person's belongings begin to gather. That corner stays drear, your spouse says, touching the back left of the chest. How do you? The roof leaks in spring. You pause with the packet of herbs in your hand. Does it leak over us? They consider, usually only if the wind is cruel, comforting. It was meant to be. The exchange settles you more than any polished reassurance could. Real houses do not promise perfection. They promise specifics. This corner stays drear. That peg is loose. Do not leave food near the wall, or the dog will become inventive. In such truths there is a kind of care. You continue arranging things. Your hand brushes theirs once as you both reach toward the same folded cloth. This time neither of you startles. They lift the cloth. You tuck your spoon beneath it. The chest begins to look less like a container and more like a conversation translated into objects. The long house beyond the curtain is no longer abstract now either. You know where the milk pails stand, where wet cloaks drip, where children are kept within reach of correction, where the dog sleeps deeply enough to trip saints and sinners alike. A marriage here does not create a sealed world for two. It drops two more lives into a flowing one, and asks them not to damn it. Inside the curtained space again, the chest lid lowers with a soft wooden thump. The sound is more final than it should be. Your spouse rests their palms on the closed lid and looks at it for a moment as though listening to what has just been locked inside. That, they say, is the first truly married sound. You sit back on your heels, a chest closing. A chest closing on objects we will spend the rest of the year trying to find again. This time, the laugh between you comes easily. Outside the curtain, the house moves on in its layered breathing. Inside, for one flicker of time, There is only the new closed chest, the low bed, the rough wool walls, and the awareness that you have both begun to build a small island within the current. It is not enough to make you feel alone together. It is enough to make you feel placed. Soon, the household will ask more of your body than your belongings. Already a bucket is being filled. Already a door is being opened toward the yard. Already marriage is preparing to introduce you to the work that keeps affection from floating away into dream. The first chore arrives in the hands of a woman who does not waste either movement or sympathy. She gives you a bucket patch so many times it seems more repair than wood, and tells your spouse to take the grain scoop. No speech follows, none is needed. The household has already moved beyond wondering whether the marriage exists. The marriage now exists enough to be useful. You are both sent toward the outbuildings with the practical mercy of people who understand that work can rescue anyone from too much self-consciousness. Outside, the animal leaned to the ground is a churn of old straw, damp earth, and hoof-marked slush. A wind slips between the boards, carrying the bright sour warmth of livestock. The smell is strong enough to flatten whatever remained of your morning dignity, which may be a gift. Marriage is harder to perform elegantly once a goat has looked into your soul and decided your boots are interesting. Your spouse shoulders the door open and stands aside for you with exaggerated courtesy. After you, they say, in the tone of one inviting another person into a hall of carved beauty rather than a drafty kingdom of hay. Inside, the household's lesser citizens greet the day without reverence. Chickens fuss. A sheep presses its face toward your bucket. A goat with one horn and ancient grievances immediately attempts to rub its flank against your leg in a manner that would be affectionate if it were not also destructive. Your spouse identifies each animal with the weary tenderness reserved for trouble that has proved persistent enough to acquire a name. This one kicks, that one escapes, the rooster cannot be trusted near red thread, the goat by the wall bites sleeves, but only when offended, and everything offends him. You begin to laugh again, under your breath, not because any of it is easy, but because the entire grand machinery of marriage has delivered you, a few hours after public ritual, into an argument with a goat over a scoop of grain. Work in such a place is not one motion repeated, but a sequence of adjustments. Lift, pour, step back, avoid hoof, refill trough, right the pail, untangle rope, speak more calmly than you feel. At first, you and your spouse move across each other rather than with each other, reaching for the same scoop, turning the same direction in a narrow space, apologizing in fragments, and stepping on each other's hems. Yet something happens in the repetition. Bodies learn, one bends when the other straightens, one braces the bucket while the other pours, one notices the hinge on the half-broken gate before the other walks into it. There is no ceremony in this learning, but it feels more real than several ceremonies you have already survived. When the patched bucket begins to leak steadily onto your boot, your spouse examines it with a gravity so excessive it becomes absurd. It respects no one, they say. Many have tried. You speak of it as though it has rank. It once defeated my uncle with water. With shame, you nearly lose hold of the handle, laughing. The laugh startles a hen, which startles a child peering through the open slats, which startles the one-horned goat, who decides the situation now requires him to leap sideways into the feed sack. Grain spills. Your spouse stares at the spreading golden mess with a face of such tragic restraint that you both have to stop moving for a moment or fall over. Then work resumes, because in a place like this laughter and labour do not cancel each other. They simply pass back and forth like a shared tool. By the time the grain is sorted, the water changed, and the worst of the straw dragged aside, Your hands sting from cold wood and wet rope. The hem of your cloak is damp. Your hair smells faintly of animals and weather. Your spouse's sleeve has acquired a line of mud, so perfect it might have been stitched there by fate. Neither of you looks improved by marriage, yet both of you look more joined by it. Not polished, joined. There's a difference. One is for feasts and songs. The other is for surviving mornings that come after them. A broader job waits near the door. Old straw needing to be forked out, the threshold swept clear. The corner by the wall where damp gathers needing attention before it turns the whole place sour. This is less funny work, slower and heavier, the kind that brings your breath into rhythm with your body, whether you wished for rhythm or not. You take the broom of bundled twigs, your spouse hefts the fork, dust rises, light catches it. The shed becomes a small weather of its own. Through the open doorway you see the winter sky beginning to lose its earlier brightness, turning pearl at the edges. It occurs to you then that the day has moved very far from the hour when you were still beneath the blanket, wondering how to stand in the same room as your new spouse. Now the two of you are clearing, mock with the practiced grimness of a pair who have already survived at least one shared indignity, too many to count. And perhaps that is where respect is born in houses like this, not in admiration from afar, but in seeing exactly how another person handles the damp, the smell, the heavy pail, the broken latch, the leaking bucket, the unlovely work no story singer bothers with unless they are wise. Your spouse works steadily. They do not complain when the goat knocks the fork from their hand. They do not curse when the latch catches skin. They do not pretend chores are noble. They simply stay inside them until they are done. You find yourself answering with the same steadiness. No performance, no courtship, just effort. It is strangely intimate. When at last you return toward the Longhouse, the cold on your face feels cleaner than it did before. The hearth smoke that meets you at the door no longer smells only of scrutiny and crowded benches. It smells of rest almost earned. Someone hands you a cloth without comment. Someone else shifts to make a little room by the fire. Your spouse sits beside you with a groan of honest tiredness and offers you the cloth first. Your knuckles brush as you take it. The contact is light. Fact that you notice it is not. The fire pops softly. For a little while, no one asks anything of you. The house hums around the edges of your hearing. Children murmur. A spoon knocks against a bowl. A cloak is shaken out somewhere near the door. You let the warmth climb slowly back into your hands, and think that perhaps this is the first true reward marriage has offered all day. Not privacy, not romance, not triumph, but a seat by the fire after shared work, with another tired person at your side and no need, for one blessed stretch of time, to explain yourself at all. Tiredness changes the Longhouse in useful ways. It lowers voices, it softens curiosity into routine. It lets the room remember that you are not only newlyweds, but two more people with cold fingers and sore backs. By late afternoon, the light from outside has thinned to a silver wash near the door, while the hearth gathers the rest of the house inward. Work settles into smaller tasks suited to seated hands. A tear is mended in a tunic. A strip of leather is softened over the knee before being sewn back onto a boot. Grain is picked through for stones. Someone begins twisting cord from fibres with the absent perfection of long habit. The day's sharper edges dull. This is the hour when a house feels most like a creature breathing itself calmer. You and your spouse end up side by side on a bench close enough to warmth that your faces feel flushed while your heels remain cold. Between you lies a torn sleeve that one of the aunts has judged worth saving. The cloth is not fine, merely stubborn enough to deserve another season. Your spouse threads the needle and passes the garment to you so you can hold the seam taut. The task requires little speech: pull, pause, stitch, turn. A domestic rhythm, modest and repetitive, begins to work its quiet on both of you. Earlier, every silence had felt either watchful or uncertain. This silence is something else entirely. It is occupied. It has work to do. Because of that, it becomes easy to inhabit. After some time, your spouse says, without looking up, "You do not hold the cloth," like someone pretending to be useful. Is that praise? It is high praise. "I will carve it on my grave marker." They snort very softly. Make sure to mention the bucket too. Future generations should learn of your courage. The conversation goes still again, not cut off, but folded. The needle passes through wool. The fire settles. A child nearby falls asleep, half upright against an elder's side, and is lifted away without waking. Outside, wind moves once along the wall, and then slips on. The Longhouse seems to make room for small truths at this hour. Truths that would sound too exposed at a bright table, or too solemn during ritual. Your spouse breaks the thread with their teeth, smooths the repaired seam, and says, "My uncle wore this for years. The one who traded north, he always smelled of salt and tar. Even in summer, you turn the sleeve in your hands. Is he dead?" Their shoulders lift and fall. "Last winter, ice took him before dawn. They brought back his knife and one glove. The rest stayed with the river." There is nothing decorative in the way they say it. No pause arranged for effect. Loss in a place like this is woven too tightly into weather to be draped in ornaments. The straightforwardness of it hurts more and gentler at the same time. You think of the sleeve between your fingers, of how odd it is that mending can become a way of sitting beside the dead without naming the act. Then it is good the seam holds. You say yes. Your spouse answers after a moment. It is. The house continues around you. Someone laughs near the door. Someone else scolds a boy for feeding crusts to the dog before the elders are done. Yet, the small circle of warmth around your bench feels separated from all that by no wall stronger than attention. You sense the weight of your spouse's shoulder, occasionally near yours, as they reach for thread or shift their knee. These little nearnesses no longer spark alarm in you. They simply register and stay. Perhaps that is what beginning to belong feels like in its quietest form. Not being swept away by each contact, but allowing it to take its place among the other ordinary facts of evening. Now, a thought comes to you then, simple and strange. The wedding night was full of pressure to become husband and wife, or wife and husband, to step at once into names larger than either of you. But here beside the fire, bent over an old sleeve, the two of you are becoming companions first. The larger names may grow around, that if they are lucky. If not, the larger names would remain hollow. The realization settles as softly as ash. It does not ask to be admired, only noticed. When the sleeve is done, your spouse lays it across their knee and runs a thumb along the repaired line. There they say, "Good, for another winter, if the goats do not take a personal interest in it." Then we should pray for their indifference. Never pray for what goats will not grant. The smile that follows is sleepy and shared. One of the older women passing by pauses long enough to set a cup of something hot and berry sweet in front of the two of you, without comment. The gesture is so unannounced, you almost miss it. A little later, another relative places a small wedge of bread nearby. No speeches, no ceremonial welcome, just provisions left within reach. In a house like this, affection often travels disguised as practicality. A cup near your hand, a corner made by the fire, a bench shifted half an inch to include you. If you waited for grand declarations, you might miss the whole language. You lift the cup, blow once across its steaming surface. and offer it to your spouse first. They hesitate only long enough to recognize the offer. Then they drink and pass it back. The place their mouth has warmed on the rim touches yours next. That is not dramatic either, yet it changes the room a little. Not the room itself, perhaps you. Evening lowers itself further. The door opens and shuts less often. People settle deeper into familiar places. Stories begin at the far side of the hearth, not yet in full voice, only testing their shape in fragments. You lean back against the wall beam and let your eyes half close, not to sleep, but to listen without having to respond. Beside you, your spouse has done the same. You sense rather than see them there. The repaired sleeve rests folded between you for a while before one of you remembers to move it. The house, once immense and evaluating, now feels almost gentle in its repetition. This is the return you did not know to hope for after the linen, the counting, the table, the yard, the animals, the damp straw. There is this. Firelight, a mended seam, a dead uncle remembered without performance, a shared cup, a bench that no longer feels borrowed. It is not peace exactly. Peace is too polished a word for a longhouse full of lives rubbing against one another. It is something better suited to endurance, a steadying, a place to set your hands before the next turn in the day arrives. The stories begin as the chores end, which may be the oldest rhythm of all. A longhouse with full daylight in it belongs to labour. A longhouse with dark rising beyond the doorway belongs to memory. Once bowls are filled again, and the children have either been fed or bribed into temporary quiet, voices gather themselves in the spaces the work has left behind. At first, the talk circles weather, stores, a loose board in the roof of the smoke shed, the rumour of late traders on the eastern road. Then, because no new marriage remains unhandled for long, in a room full of kin, the circle drifts toward you, and your spouse the way smoke drifts toward any opening it can find. No one is cruel about it. That would be easier to resist. Instead, the teasing comes with warmth in it, the kind that blurs the line between hazing and inclusion. A cousin wonders loudly whether either of you will survive the spring leaks without learning to float. An aunt claims she can already tell who will manage the chest better, just by the angle at which each of you stacks folded linen. Someone asks whether the new sleeping alcove has enough room for 2 adults, one goat of determined ambition and the ghost of an elder uncle who still resents the relocation of his peg. Laughter moves around the benches, soft but steady. Even the grandmother seems entertained, though her face hardly changes. Your spouse answers some of it with dry ease. You answer what you can, and let the rest pass over you like harmless weather. The useful thing about being teased in a house like this is that it forces you into proportion. You are not a symbolic union under a sacred light. You are 2 people who now have to deal with damp bedding, missing spoons, and relatives with long memories. Humiliation loses some of its bite when it is turned into a story everyone shares a little. That may be one reason old communities survive themselves. They laugh before embarrassment can harden into distance. At some point, a game begins with little announcement. Carved pieces of bone are rolled across a board scratched into the bench top, and the symbol they land on decides who must answer a question. Tell a winter memory, confess a household skill, or admit a useless fear. The game is too old for anyone to explain fully and too fluid for any one set of rules to matter. When the marked bone lands near your hand, a murmur goes around the bench. New spouse, someone declares with satisfaction, as if the board itself has spoken wisely. You are asked what dream would be good luck for a first marriage night. You could say anything. You know that the room values a good answer more than a literal one. So you look into the fire and tell them you would choose a dream in which two travellers lose their road in a storm, but find, beneath one bent tree, a patch of ground kept strangely dry. They do not yet know whether the place is shelter or accident, but they share it until morning and wake to find they have not been buried by snow after all. The room goes quiet in that way it does, when people are deciding whether something has risen above mere cleverness. Then an elder clicks their tongue softly and says that dry ground in a storm is indeed a fine sign, provided no fox claims it first. The room loosens again. Your spouse glances at you with an expression halfway between surprise and approval. The approval matters more than you expected. Very good. They murmur later, while someone else takes a turn. You made us sound almost noble. I was trying for survivable. In this house, that is nobility. As the game fades, gift-giving takes its quieter evening form. Not the formal exchange of a feast hall, but the smaller aftercurrent that follows it, where tokens move between hands to thicken the cords of goodwill. A spindle haul wrapped in cloth, a bundle of dried herbs judged strong enough for winter coughs, a needle case, a comb, a carved spoon with one side burned darker than the other because the maker misjudged distance from the fire and decided the mistake gave it character. Gifts here are not made sentimental by rarity, but by appropriateness. Ah, they say, I have noticed what might serve you. I am placing a thread between my life and yours. Pull it someday if you need help, and remember that I may pull back. You and your spouse have little to give immediately beyond presence, gratitude, and the willingness not to refuse what is offered. Yet even that has value if carried properly. A linen working ant presses a narrow length of woven band into your hand and says it will keep a chest lid from slamming in damp weather. A man from the outer bench gives your spouse a hook knife with a chipped handle and claims it has 2 good seasons left if not abused by fools. A child solemnly deposits a smooth stone by your knee because it looks lucky. Your spouse later slips the stone into your palm under cover of conversation as though passing a secret document. You curl your fingers around it and do not laugh until after the dangerous moment has passed. Then song begins, not all at once, but with a single older voice taking up a line so low and steady that others can find their way into it without hurry. It is not a performance song, it is a work song softened for evening, about rowing against weather and coming home to smoke seen before the shore itself. Voices join. The melody is narrow and repetitive in the best way, turning back on itself like a path, walked often enough to become restful. You do not know the words at first. Your spouse leans close enough that their shoulder warms your upper arm through wool, and feeds you pieces of the line when it comes around again. You murmur them back, not well, not confidently, simply enough to stay inside the circle. That may be the deepest form of welcome the day has offered. Not the bowl, not the bench, not the teasing, not even the cup by the fire. This, being given the next words before the melody reaches you, being allowed to come in softly, rather than commanded to prove yourself. The song moves around the house and back again. The fire settles lower. One child sleeps face down across an elder's lap. The dog finally gives up begging and curls into its own fur. Even the boards of the Longhouse seem to relax under the weight of familiar sound. When the singing thins into hum and murmur, your spouse lifts the small smooth stone from where you set it on the bench and studies it as though it might contain a map. Keep this, they say, if you misplace everything else, At least you will still own a lucky stone and one respectable spoon. Your confidence is moving. I am being practical. It is the household way. You take the stone back and slide it into the pouch at your belt. Such a foolish small thing to feel important, and yet it does. The house has spent all day asking what use you will be to it, what shape you will take within it, whether you can bear being seen. Now, at last, it begins answering a quieter question in return. Can the house bear you too? The answer seems to be yes, though not in a way anyone would ever speak plainly beside a fire. A good house seldom declares, it demonstrates, it makes room on a bench, it teaches a song, it leaves a band for the chest lid. It laughs when you answer well. It places luck in your hand and trusts you to understand the language without translation. Days do not stay fixed after the wedding. They lengthen, blur, repeat, and then suddenly introduce a new weight, as if to remind you that belonging is a process rather than a morning. By the second or third day, you are already beginning to lose count in the smoke-soft rhythm of dawn fire. Shared bowls, yard work, and evening mending, the household sends you and your spouse with 2 elders to the rise beyond the pasture, where old stones stand among winter grass. The sky is clear enough for distance that morning. Frost edges the earth in white. The air tastes of iron and sleep, not fully left behind. You had thought perhaps the house might now be finished, making meaning from your marriage. Instead, it appears determined to include every layer the world can offer. The living, the dead, the weather, the law, the future not yet embodied. The elders carry a little grain, a small cup of ale, and a bundle of dried leaves that release a bitter clean smell when rubbed between the fingers. No one calls the walk solemn, yet everyone lowers their voice without deciding to. The path climbs gently. Beside you, your spouse's steps shorten near the crest. You do not ask why. Some places explain themselves when you arrive. The stones are not grand. Time has made them modest. That makes them more convincing. They stand half sunken, names and marks, weathered to rough suggestion, each one less a monument than a held place in the world where memory continues to sit down. The elder man sets the cup near the central stone. The woman scatters grain in a slow arc. Your spouse kneels without hesitation and touches 2 fingers to the cold lichen there. You kneel beside them, because of course you do. Marriage in this house has already taught you that when one body lowers in respect, the other often follows before thought can catch up. No long speech is required. The elder woman murmurs the names of a few dead. Some close, some distant, each name entering the morning and then dissolving into it. Your spouse says a line in the old household, phrasing you are still learning. Something about continuing warmth, steady walls, useful hands. When they finish, they look at you. It is not a command. It is room being made. You do not know the ancient words, so you speak plainly. You say you are new to this ground and do not know yet how to step on it properly, but you mean no disrespect. You say you hope to learn the shape of the house without breaking it. You say you hope, if the dead still notice such things, that they may be patient while you do. The honesty of it embarrasses you the instant it is spoken. Yet the morning receives it quietly. Nothing cracks, nothing turns away. A breeze moves through the dry grass and goes on. When you stand again, your spouse gives the smallest nod. It is enough to warm you more than the sun has managed. On the walk back, the elder man begins, in the same tone he might use to discuss fencing, to explain the practical side of marriage that lives beyond the first week's rituals. Shared duties, claims and rights, who keeps what if loss comes? What witnesses remember if tempers turn? How a person leaves a marriage if leaving becomes the better act? He speaks without cruelty and without embarrassment. That too is part of the household way. Better to name what can break a union than to pretend breakage belongs only to other people. The words sit heavily at first. You had imagined the world after the wedding as a long settling inward, not a lesson in the exits. Yet, the more he speaks, the more the knowledge changes shape in your mind. A bond freely maintained is weightier than one sealed by the absence of choice. A blanket shared because two people remain under it matters more than a blanket shared because no other arrangement is permitted. Your spouse listens with lowered face and hands inside sleeves, not flinching from any of it. When the elder is finally done, they say only, "A house lasts longer," when no one must be chained to it. The elder woman makes a sound that might be agreement. And a marriage lasts longer when both people know the difference between hardship and harm. No one elaborates, none is needed. You carry the words down the slope with you. Beneath them, another quieter thought begins working itself into place. The house is not trapping you inside its rhythm, it is showing you the rhythm honestly, including where it could fail. There is dignity in that honesty, even if it chills. Especially then, later, back near the hearth, the day's tasks resume as though gravestones and legal truths were simply other stations in the same long chain of ordinary life. Dough is kneaded, wet wool is turned toward the fire, a child is sent to fetch wood, and returns instead with half a branch and a feather, claiming both are useful. Still, the conversation from the slope stays with you. Near dusk, when you and your spouse are sent to check a latch on the outer shed, you mention it. "Does it trouble you," you ask quietly, "that marriage can end so plainly?" They test the latch once before answering. "It troubles me less that it can end than that some unions should end and do not." You stand there with your hand on the cold wood, considering. So the freedom makes the staying matter. Yes, the word is simple, but it travels through you with the steadiness of a bell tone. Your spouse rests one hand flat against the shed door, as if feeling whether it sits true in its frame. "If we quarrel," they add after a little while, "I hope we quarrel like sensible people." What does that mean in this house? No throwing tools, no summoning unnecessary cousins, no dramatic speeches unless the speech is truly excellent. You laugh, and if it is excellent, then perhaps one cousin has witness to style. The shed latch gives under their adjustment and sits properly. Something in you does too. The world has not become lighter, it has become clearer. Around you the air is turning toward evening blue. Smoke rises from the Longhouse in a broad familiar line. The thought that this could someday be lost does not make the sight smaller. It makes it sharper, more beloved for being contingent. You walk back together through the dim cold with that knowledge between you, not as a threat, but as a careful flame cupped from the wind. A marriage is not made gentler by pretending storms do not exist. It becomes gentler by learning how two people choose the same shelter while they can. It turns out that the first true quarrel of a marriage does not arrive with thunder, betrayal, or any grand violation worthy of song. It arrives with cream, left too long in a churn, and the quiet conviction that someone else should have noticed it first. The morning is grey, damp, and busy with the kind of small, urgent tasks that make everyone feel slightly wronged by daylight. You come from the yard, carrying kindling on one arm, and find the churn exactly where it was at dawn, untouched on the bench. Your spouse sees it too. You know they see it because their gaze pauses half a heartbeat, and then moves on with suspicious innocence toward a loaf of bread that suddenly requires slicing. No words are exchanged. That is how you know the quarrel has begun. A loud argument would almost be easier. Loudness burns quickly. Silence, by contrast, can lace itself through an entire day. You set down the kindling. Your spouse slices the bread with more concentration than any loaf deserves. You begin tidying the hearth tools. They carry water in from the barrel, but leave the ladle on the wrong side. You notice, of course you notice, in another state of mind you would simply move it. Instead you leave it there because leaving it there means something, though what exactly it means remains pleasingly unclear even to you. Such is the household craft of low-level displeasure. The house, being old and expert in human weather, notices immediately while pretending not to. An aunt asks whether either of you has seen the better salt scoop and chooses not to wait for an answer. Person glances between you both and suddenly volunteers to take the children outside before sparks become visible. The grandmother mutters to herself that marriages ripen like cheese and sometimes smell worse at the same stages. No one presses. A Longhouse understands that some conflicts must be allowed to circle before they land. Throughout the day, the quarrel grows not by speeches, but by omissions. Your spouse clears one side of the bench and not the other. You fold the spare blanket, but do not smooth their corner of it. They bring in dry wood, yet stack the pieces so precariously that only a saint would fail to read irritation in the arrangement. You fix the chest strap, but forget to mention that it was nearly torn. They refill the water bucket and leave it half a step farther from the hearth than usual, which should not matter and does. The remarkable thing is how familiar this all feels despite being new. Apparently, intimacy includes the rapid development of deeply specific pettiness. By afternoon, the sky has turned the colour of pewter and the first rain begins. Not as a blessing, but as a determined occupation of every outdoor surface. Drips start at the eaves, wind presses dampness against the walls. A line of moisture appears exactly where your spouse warned it would, at the edge of the sleeping alcove where the roof never entirely trusts spring. It ought to be impossible to sustain dignified resentment while placing bowls under leaks, but human beings have always been inventive. You hold one pot beneath the drip. Your spouse adjusts the fur away from the wet patch without looking at you. Rain drums harder. Somewhere in the house, a child begins to sing a song about ducks in entirely the wrong season until told to stop. At last, the absurdity grows too large to live inside quietly. You are both standing in the alcove, each holding one corner of a blanket out of the leak's path, when another drop lands squarely on your wrist, cold and perfect. You say, before planning to say it, if we are going to be miserable with each other, perhaps we should at least do it while saving the bedding. Your spouse stills then, because the line is too true to resist. They let out a short, involuntary laugh. Rain taps on the roof. A second drop strikes the bowl below, with ridiculous emphasis. They lean their head briefly against the hanging curtain and say, "I should have churned it." "Yes, you could have said so. Yes, another drop, another beat." Then they look at you fully. "I did not mean to leave it. I did not mean to make a religion of noticing. That does it." The whole quarrel breaks apart, not in apology exactly, but in mutual recognition of its size. Too small to worship, too large to ignore, you both begin laughing, tired and rain-frayed and relieved, the sound blending with water and the hollow plink of drips into mismatched bowls. There is no perfect speech after that, only practical repair. You move the chest farther from the wall together. They climb onto the low beam to push a wad of moss into the worst crack while you brace them at the waist. You nearly slip. They nearly drop the moss. The blanket ends up over both your shoulders for a while simply because it is there and damp air is not sentimental. Rain confines everyone, that brings its own strangeness. By evening, the Longhouse is full of restless weather, trapped in human form. A boy invents a game involving pebbles and accusations. Two elders disagree about whether onions should be planted by moon or by mud. The goat sneezes in moral outrage, because no creature enjoys wet straw. Yet inside the annoyance, there is a rough kind of festival too, as though storm days allow people to drop some of their careful shapes. Voices rise, laughter comes quicker. Someone begins drumming on an empty tub until a cushion silences the performance. Marriage, under such conditions, stops pretending to be tidy. After supper, the rain eases only a little. You and your spouse slip outside anyway, under one cloak, because the house has become too full of damp wool, steam, and everybody's opinions. The yard is dark silver. Water runs in thin lines through the ruts between buildings. The air is cold enough to sting after the close heat inside. You walk past the fence toward the stream, where the noise of water can drown thought. No one follows, even a Longhouse knows, when two newlyweds have earned a stretch of weather to themselves. At the stream, you stop beneath a bent tree, whose branches catch some of the rain. The world smells of wet earth, bark, and the clean rawness that comes only after too many hours indoors. Your spouse tips their face up toward the dark and, without warning, lets out one fierce shout. It tears across the water and vanishes into the rain. You stare at them for half a heartbeat, and then do the same, because there are moods that no words can carry properly. And one of them is the feeling of being alive, annoyed, damp, loved, worried, tired, and not alone all at once. When the shouts are gone, laughter returns in their place, lower now, calmer, almost embarrassed by its own freedom. We are ridiculous, you say. We are married, they answer, as though that covers the matter completely. Perhaps it does. You stand there breathing the storm until breath evens out. The quarrel, so large in the morning, has thinned into something almost useful. Not because it vanished, but because it showed you the edge of each other's pride without cutting too deep. On the walk back, your spouse reaches under the shared cloak and finds your hand with cold fingers. Neither of you remarks on it. The hand remains there all the same, back inside. The bowls still wait under the leaks. The elders still mutter over onions. The goat still believes the world has wronged him. Nothing is solved in a grand way, yet something has settled. Later, when you lie down, your spouse says into the dark, "Next time say, it's sooner." You too, agreed. The rain goes on above you. Softer now, moving from drumming into steady patter. The Longhouse breathes damply around its sleeping bodies. Somewhere, a pot shifts as it catches one final drop. Beside you, the blanket holds, the bed holds. The hand you nearly reached for earlier finds yours openly now. You close your eyes and let the sound of rain finish what the day began. It washes the sharpness from things. It leaves the house still standing. Seasons continue their patient work, whether a marriage feels ready for them or not. Damp weeks pass. The leak above the alcove becomes less hostile once the roof is patched with care and a little luck. Mud thickens, dries, thickens again. The chest grows heavier with shared things and lighter of mysteries. You stop reaching for your spoon in the old place and begin reaching where it is now kept. Your spouse no longer warns you about the loose peg, because your hand avoids it on its own. The house teaches through repetition what ceremonies only announce. In time, even the elders seem to forget to watch you quite so openly, which may be the truest sign of acceptance any crowded roof can offer. One evening, long after the first morning has softened into house memory, the blacksmith cousin appears by the hearth, carrying something wrapped in old linen. He stands there as if he has simply happened to stop while crossing the room, though the weight in his hands says otherwise. Without flourish, he sets the bundle on the bench between you and your spouse and nudges it closer with two soot-dark fingers. "Late wedding gift," he says, as if lateness were the most natural seasoning for iron. Then he retreats before gratitude can become a conversation. Blacksmiths, you are learning, prefer finished things to spoken ones. Inside the cloth lies a knife sized for daily use, not war. Sturdy, balanced, plain enough to pass without envy, fine enough to reward the hand. The handle is smooth, bone-darkened where fingers would naturally close. The blade carries the subtle wavering light of being shaped with attention rather than haste. It is not a ceremonial object. That is why it pierces you more deeply than ceremony could. In a world like this, the truest gifts are often those meant to work. A shared tool says more than an embellished speech. It says there will be meals to cut, cords to trim, herbs to slice, leather to shape, little emergencies to answer together while the years do what they do outside the walls. Your spouse turns the knife in the firelight, and then, without any audience worth naming, places it across both your palms rather than one. The gesture is simple. It stills you. For a moment you do not see only the knife. You see the bucket and the bench, the mended sleeve, the leak bowls, the long walk to the stones, the first cold laugh in the yard, the salt-heavy stew, the folded clothes waiting at the foot of the bed, all the mundane, awkward things that have made a life begin. The blade rests there as if it belongs to that same collection. Not an ornament laid over reality, a reality sharpened into form. Later, in the quiet near your sleeping alcove, your spouse scratches two small marks into the handle near the end cap top. One for them, one for you. They are not grand symbols, only quick familiar shapes your hands know how to make. You watch the tiny shavings curl away and think how much of marriage seems to happen exactly there, in motions almost too small to admire. A little mark, a little repair, a little rearrangement that becomes custom if repeated often enough. When the knife is finally sheathed and hung from a peg close to the door, it seems at once entirely new and as if it had always belonged there. The house drifts into evening around that small addition. Someone sings under their breath while sorting wool. A pot murmurs near the fire. The dog dreams with visible paws. Your spouse sits cross-legged beside the chest, polishing the sheath with a scrap of cloth, and says, "It is a good sign." The knife? No. That he waited this long. You lean against the bed frame, listening. If he had given it on the wedding day, they continue, it would have been a wedding gift. Now it is a household gift. There is a difference, you understand. The distinction is quiet but profound. A wedding gift honors an event. A household gift honors persistence. It says not merely welcome, but you have lasted long enough to need something that belongs to staying. You glance toward the peg where the knife hangs near the door, ready for tomorrow's ordinary uses, and the sight fills you with a tenderness so practical it almost disappears inside itself. Night thickens. You and your spouse slip under the blankets, while the Longhouse settles one body at a time. The sleeping sounds here are never beautiful in the polished sense. Someone snores with astonishing confidence. A child talks once in a dream and is hushed by a hand that never wakes. Outside the wall, a restless animal shifts against its pen. Wind feels along the roof and moves on, yet there is music in such imperfection when you have heard it long enough. The house is not silent, it is held. You lie on your back for a while, tracing with your eyes the darker lines of the beams above. Your spouse turns toward you, hair smelling faintly of smoke and rain-dried wool. "Do you remember the first morning?" they ask. "The linen, the stew, the bucket?" They laugh softly. "I was thinking of the yard when you told me it had gone better than it might have." When you laughed, the memory arrives not as a scene, but as weather inside you. Cold air, smoke, relief, a laugh you did not plan to trust. "I remember you say." They tuck one hand beneath the blanket and find yours in the dark, with the certainty of habit now rather than hope. "That was when I thought we might manage, might. We are sensible enough not to tempt the gods with certainty." Fair, very fair. You lie there smiling into the dark where no one needs to see it. Around you the Longhouse breathes. Under the blanket, the warmth between your palms gathers and stays. The day does not conclude so much as thin into rest. Tomorrow there will be wood to split, broth to warm, some fresh domestic inconvenience, some small mercy, perhaps sun, perhaps more rain. The house will ask for labour, the season will ask for patience. The marriage will ask for the same old thing it has asked from the first morning onward. Not perfection, not spectacle, only the repeated choosing of the bench, the bowl, the shared task, the open hand in darkness. So when anyone someday asks what happened after the first night, the truest answer will not fit neatly inside a single ritual or a single dawn. What happened was slower than that. The house watched, the family measured, the work arrived, the weather tested, the days repeated. Two people learned where the spoons belonged, and where the roof leaked, and how to quarrel before the bedding was ruined. They learned the smell of each other's sleeves after rain. They learned when to speak and when to place a cup within reach instead. They learned that love, if it comes in such a place, often comes wearing the clothes of usefulness, and staying only later reveals its face. The fire sinks lower, a coal gives way with a tiny glow, and then settles again. Your eyes grow heavy, then heavier still, beside you. Your spouse's breathing lengthens into sleep or the edge of it. Outside, unseen beyond the wall, the night keeps its own patient watch over yard, roof, pen, path, and the dark fields farther off. The Longhouse is only one held warmth in that larger darkness, and yet, for now it is enough. The story does not close, it simply lowers its voice, making room for more. Whether more years, more ordinary miracles too small for songs and too necessary to be forgotten.